Welcome to Table Talk here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world, 12 years strong. It is the college football season. So many great storylines to get into, and we got a great discussion coming your way on Table Talk this week. We've got one of our really good friends from Fansided, one of the lead writers over there. He's been on the show a number of times, Mr. John Buhler. Buddy, how you doing? And thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be here, Jeff. Glad to see the Atlanta Falcons got a win on Sunday to deal with the fact that Georgia did not get it done on Saturday night.
Exactly. You're down south. You know, you follow some of these more southern teams. I know Georgia's your team in college football. We're going to get to that in a bit here, John. But I first wanted to start off our discussion. Wanted to get into my team here, the Penn State Nittany Lions, who just dropped their first loss of the season to Oregon. Hopefully it's their only loss this season, but I'm not going to hold out hope, and I'm not going to hold my breath here. I swear, it's like every year. A lot of us Penn State fans, John, we always have high hopes coming into these games, but at the end of the day, frankly, a lot of us just weren't surprised how this all turned out in the end. These are some really good Penn State teams that we've seen over the years, but they just have trouble beating top 10 ranked teams like Oregon, like Ohio State, which I think is probably going to be their second loss of the season. It's just an ongoing theme here. You know, Chris Landers over at Fansided, one of your colleagues, he did an interesting story on James Franklin and the, quote, hell that is the Penn State football program that we're all currently in here. Just in terms of the floor and the ceiling with this team, dear Lord. I want to get your thoughts as we start off this discussion. Thoughts on the Penn State-Oregon game and your overall thoughts on the Penn State football program at this point, who are looking again at what I believe is probably going to be a 2-loss team this year once again. What are your thoughts, buddy?
Loaded question, but I'll do the best I can right here. It's the James Franklin of it all. I've lived through it with the Mark Richt experience there in Athens, so I empathize with what's going on there in Happy Valley. Look, I picked Oregon to win the game coming in. I thought that the Ducks are playing very well under Dan Lanning. They took that loss to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl personally, and I'm like, wow, Oregon's tough. I didn't think I'd ever say that in a sentence before.
Yeah.
But looking at Penn State here, you've got all the talent in the world. I mean, maybe not at every skill position or every position on the field, but like certainly enough to go on a deep playoff run. The concern is, I think this team's kind of poorly coached. James Franklin, like if we're getting to a point with him where like he's got to make it happen or not. I know Jim Knowles is a fantastic defensive coordinator. He's new. I'm a little concerned with Andy Koltnecki on offense. And when's Drew Aller going to be better? Like
I know
he's got to be. I think he's a better version of JJ McCarthy. But honestly, you see what Bo Pribula is doing there at Mizzou, and you kind of wonder like, do we pick the wrong guy?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think Drew Aller's going to be the guy. I'll say this right now, just in conversations I've had behind the scenes with friends, even family members, Drew Aller going to the NFL, I'm not sure if that's really going to necessarily be an experiment that's going to work. We see him in these big time situations, whether it was 2024 season, how that ended with an interception. We see this game, it ends on an interception in overtime. I love the kid. I do. But I just don't think Drew Aller is the guy necessarily even to get this team to a national championship. But I want to dive into your team that you follow, that you are very, very in tune with, and that is Georgia here. It's really amazing to me how Georgia, because of their recruiting, because of the talent they have, just really hasn't looked like a real true SEC powerhouse in terms of a top 5 team that we've seen in the past. I mean, they just dropped this past week's game to Alabama, and that could actually have some college football playoff implications down the road, John. So what are your thoughts on what we've been seeing from Georgia thus far this season, and can they really be a force within the college football playoff bracket? What are your thoughts here?
I'm so tired of losing to Alabama, Jeff. I'm so tired. It's like Ohio State for you.
It's like Ohio State, yep.
It's hammer versus nail. Georgia and Penn State are one of the same. And again, the same sort of issue applies. Kirby Smart's a fantastic head coach. I think anybody who follows college football knows that to be true. The problem is he has 2 absolute stooges for his coordinators. Mike Bobo, just because he was best friends with him back in 96, doesn't mean he should be calling plays. I don't care that his son's the center. I don't care. And then Glenn Schumann's my age. He's been at the program for 10 years. What's the point? He's like Thomas Mikowski from Office Space. What exactly do you do here? And like I said, Georgia's got plenty of talent there. I think FPI favors Georgia a little bit more than Penn State to make the playoff. But like what I've seen out of the Dogs, like maybe you can win a 7-10 home game, but like you're not going to get past Oregon. You're not going to get past Ohio State. You're not going to get past. I'm not looking forward to facing Ole Miss later on this season. That team's
right. Right. I mean, when it comes to the offense, really quick, just because I've always found Georgia to be fascinating in terms of their offense. Is it more trouble with, and not that they're necessarily having trouble, but are you finding that the passing game, the running game is like really kind of lacking the type of, panache I think that maybe we've seen in the past? Are you seeing that at all?
Really, the big thing is the reason Georgia's got 2 national championships is because Todd Monken was our offensive coordinator for 3 years. That guy's a stud.
Yeah.
I mean, he may be regretting going to Baltimore now because of the Lamar Jackson of it all. But I will say, like, there is not really it doesn't set itself up. I mean, there's times in the game where when Bobo calls running plays, it looks fantastic. Georgia's at its best when it's running the football. Yeah. He's got some really interesting designs there from a passing standpoint. And the Gunnar Stockton can make all the throws. He's not really been the problem. The issue is kind of like, again, Georgia's receivers drop everything. There's just not really been, I mean, I've been a Georgia fan since I went there in 2008. Like, we've only really had 3 truly special receivers, maybe 4 now with Zachariah Branch. But like outside of AJ Green, Ladd McConkey, and George Pickens, it's like that's the part of the team where I just don't trust that unit. Like, could have had that go-ahead score with the freshman I'm blanking on his name. It's maddening. I'm done with Bobo. I want to get somebody else in here.
We feel that at Penn State a lot with certain coaching staff members as well. But look, before we go to our first break here, I wanted to get into the quarterback position in college football in general, because we're always looking at and assessing this quarterback scene, and it changes throughout the course of a college football season. I mean, coming into this season, Arch Manning, I mean, wow, you talk about some guy who had a ceiling possibly because of his last name being Manning, and boy, he has certainly dropped in terms of favorability within the college football ranks at the quarterback position. Marcel Reed from Texas A&M, we're certainly keeping our eyes on him. He's been doing some good stuff this year. Carson Beck, even from Miami. I mean, he's intriguing. I didn't necessarily think Carson Beck would be as intriguing as he is, and maybe NFL scouts are taking a look at him and saying, oh, is he professional football material here? I'm wondering, John, how are you seeing the quarterback landscape really taking shape, as there are going to be some of these NFL teams are going to need that quarterback help in the future after the 2026 NFL draft? What are your thoughts here about the quarterback class?
I'm really glad I've got Michael Penix Jr. in Atlanta, and you've got Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. This is not the year to get a quarterback right now.
And we thought it was. Yes. And we thought it was last year.
All right. I'll try to unpack this as succinctly as I can. Okay. I thought there was like 6 quarterbacks that had like first round grades coming in. I know you mentioned Reed. I know you mentioned Beck. Reed, I got to see him develop more as a passer, but he's in a great situation there with Elko as his coach, and Colin Klein's like, hey, go beat me at K-State here. And I think that works out well. I've lived through the Carson Beck experience. He's thriving in Shannon Dawson's offense. He's got all the starts in the world. He'll have an opportunity in the NFL. I just don't know if he throws the most catchable ball. That's kind of like what leads to the incompletions, interceptions. But again, Beck could do what Cam Ward did potentially. We'll see what happens there. As far as like quarterbacks that I thought were going to be first round picks, I thought Drew Aller for sure. It really comes down to like the right team at this point. Maybe it's Cleveland. Cade Klubnik has been a disaster with Clemson.
Yes.
And then honestly, Garrett Nussmeier, kind of a complainer. I understand that he's hurt, but like on the Matthew Stafford to Blake Bortles scale, he's probably closer to Bortles, and that's not what you want. As far as who you may look at, I still think Lenore Sellers is the most talented guy there at South Carolina. Yeah. Again, he may return, but Mike Shula has been a terrible OC hire to replace Dow Loggins. Really like Fernando Mendoza at Indiana. Yeah. But again, his brother Alberto is on the team, so maybe he wants to exhaust his eligibility playing for Coach Sig. Why not? John Buhler, a guy a lot of people like. I think he's a little small, maybe injury prone. My problem is he's a little too reckless. So if I had to, if you had to tell me who I want to take, I would take Sellers, but I think Mendoza is the big one to watch right now.
All right, very good. Again, folks, we're talking to John Buhler from Fansided, one of the lead writers over there, fansided.com. Check out all their content. You know we love our Fansided sites. John, let everybody know where they can find you on the interwebs out there if they want to connect with you.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You know, I've got all my stuff there. I'm writing on a bunch of college sites now as opposed to the main flagship site. So I write a lot about Georgia and Wisconsin now. I get both sides of the coin, a good team and a terrible team.
Yep.
It's all on a Facebook page there. It's all on Twitter. So you can follow me along there. You can also just Google me. You'll see what I write. It's fine.
Fantastic. Absolutely. And folks, you can like and subscribe to our podcast, Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, on YouTube. If you're watching there, hit that like button, subscribe as well, and hit the bell to be notified when we post new videos. We're also on social media too. You want to get in touch with us? We're on Instagram, Twitter/X. I'm over on TikTok at Mr. Jeff Warren. We're on Blue Sky Threads and Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, it's right in front of you. But just search out the Philadelphia Sports Table. You can search myself out, Eric. Len, bless his soul, not on social media anymore. So that good for him. Good for him. But
good for him.
Absolutely. He was like, I am tired of this. We've been doing it for so many years. This is nonsense. I'm stopping. And he's been so happy. He's been happy, John. I got to tell you, I wish I could do it. I can't, though. I can't.
We just dig pain, Jeff. That's what it's all about.
Exactly. Folks, we're going to take a break and we get back. We got more college football talk coming your way. Stick with us. All right, we are back and again talking to our friend John Buhler from Fansided. Great content over at fansided.com and all their other sites as well. I really want to get into now after this break here, a team that has kind of surprised me here this season. Maybe they shouldn't have, but I think we need to realize that Ole Miss really is a team that's on the rise, and it pains me because of how much dislike I have for Lane Kiffin and have for so many years. With Ole Miss, man, I think they really could make a run at the college football championship this year, John. I'm wondering if you believe so as well from what you've seen. What are your thoughts on what we've seen from Ole Miss thus far? Do you think they're championship caliber material here?
Through 5 weeks, they're the best team in the SEC, and I don't think it's close.
Yeah.
I know you despise Lane Kiffin, and I'm probably going to here in a couple of weeks when he comes to Athens, but the dude's in his bag. He's really feeling it. He's calling a lot of great plays. He's really leveled up as a coach. He's grown up a lot since dinner. That's kind of how he is.
Yeah.
But I will say this, what's really important is he's got great coaches on his staff. Charlie Weiss Jr., he's a future head coach. Pete Golding's a proven SEC commodity there at defensive coordinator. My former quarterback, Joe Cox, is on the staff too. It's again, coaching matters. And I also think with Ole Miss, like they have the stones to pivot off Austin Simmons in favor of Trinidad Chambliss, the Ferris State transfer. I mean, this guy was on my Heisman ballot if I had one. He'd be number 2 right now behind Dante Moore.
Yeah.
And I think with Chambliss at quarterback, he's giving the Rebels all sorts of confidence in all 3 phases to go out there. You see the Landshark defense flying around there versus LSU, winning a crucial game in Magnolia. And I did pick Ole Miss to make the playoff this past in the offseason because they had a very favorable schedule. I think it's them, Tennessee, Mizzou, and I'm blanking on the 4th team that had like the 4th easiest schedule in the SEC, relatively speaking. But if they go 10-2, like they can get to Atlanta. They've never been to Atlanta since they've had an SEC championship. If you win that game, you get a first-round bye. FPI over there on ESPN grades them very favorably. My concern with Ole Miss is the same thing I have with Indiana. I just don't think that they recruit well enough out of high school. They do well in the portal. And even if you have great teams like this in Ole Miss and Indiana, you got to win 3 games against a bunch of really good teams to win the playoff. And look, as an Atlanta fan, as a Philadelphia fan, we've all seen teams before that were a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, we knew we weren't going to win it all. Like the 98 Falcons weren't going to win the Super Bowl. 2014-15 Hawks weren't going to win the NBA championship. I mean, I'm trying to think what would be an example for Philly, like maybe the 01 Sixers. Like you got to beat Kobe and Shaq Lakers
absolutely
like 7 times in a row. But like Ole Miss has like a national semifinal ceiling. If they get a lucky break, maybe they get to the title bout. But I mean, maybe it goes like TCU a couple of years ago. I'm not saying they're going to get blown out, but there
Yeah.
is a ceiling there with Ole Miss. But this is still a really good football team.
Something you mentioned, and I didn't plan on bringing it up, but I think it's so noteworthy, John, is that, whether it's Lane Kiffin or whether it's another college football program and head coach, is how the coordinators all mesh with each other and the head coach too, to then inevitably get this productive product on the field. And I think like we've tried to dissect it so much over the years on this podcast platform. And inevitably, I think it really comes down to relationships, whether it's coaching relationships with each other, understanding and gelling, and it's something you can't teach. And then the relationship with the players on the field, how that manifests itself, or I should say off the field, and then it manifests itself on the field. Relationships are just everything in life in general, but in the sports world, I think it's that much more important for teams to see success. And it's always astonishing to me how you can have coordinators and coaches who are not successful in certain situations, but then they move to another situation and it's like, my gosh, they are geniuses. And it's like, well, why weren't they doing this in other locations and other cities and other towns and other colleges? And you say to yourself, well, it's the relationships at the end of the day. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
That's a great point. Golding, for example, they wanted to run him out of town in Tuscaloosa. They thought he was the guy that brought the end of the Saban dynasty there in Alabama. He's just found a much easier place to. Ole Miss is kind of operating at its zenith right now. I don't know how much further they can go. Maybe they get to like Johnny Vaught era, like late 50s and stuff like that. But you look at Ohio State, like everybody panned the Matt Patricia hire. That seems to be working out. You won in Seattle. Most people don't do that. The problem is Brian Hartline can't call plays, and that's going to cost the Buckeyes potentially a chance at repeating. So it all comes down to coordinators, and coaching staff. I mean, I wonder with Texas, Kwiatkowski's got the defense going. I don't know what AJ Milwee does behind Steve Sarkisian. That's why I'm not really high on Texas right now.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about these relationships, what they mean when coaches are going from team to team, city to city, and college program to college program. So look, as we're kind of finishing up our discussion, wanted to talk about some underrated teams, some overrated teams within the college football scene. Let's first get into some underrated teams here. I personally think that Missouri is going to be more and more of a force as the season progresses. And I think there's an argument to be made that they are actually ranked too low at number 19 in the country as we're recording this here. John, I'm wondering who have been a couple perhaps teams that have been most surprising to you in college football this year. Maybe some teams that might be ranked a little too low, maybe not ranked at all. Who are some of those underrated teams for you, buddy?
You bring up a great point with Missouri. Like I said, every league has like a comparative in another league. Missouri and North Carolina State are kind of one of the same. As soon as you buy into Mizzou or NC State, they always disappoint. Whenever you don't think anything about them, they always exceed expectations.
Right.
Bo Pribula has really added a lot to the Tigers offense there. A massive upgrade over Brady Cook. I think getting the head case diva Luther Burden III out of the building is a huge help. You had to overcome losing Blake Baker to LSU. That's not easy. And I think the big question with Mizzou is how long are you going to keep Eli Drinkwitz? Because there are potentially 3 SEC jobs that could open up that he might take. He might take Florida. I wouldn't go there personally. I think that place is a disaster. He is from Arkansas. Do you turn heel in battle line?
Right.
The job that he really wants, though, that's Auburn, because he was on a Chiswick staff under Malzahn and everything like that. Also another great coordinator, and Malzahn there at Florida State. Outside of Mizzou, they have a really soft schedule, probably the easiest in the SEC. That's kind of where I think no one's giving them the benefit of the doubt, but they could beat Bama. They could beat Oklahoma.
I think so.
Yeah. This is a team that I thought was going to go 9-3, but I also don't think I had them winning the border war versus Kansas. And if I got to go through another team out there, I've been pretty impressed with Memphis out of the group of 5, and then in the Big 12, BYU is not going away, and they lost Jake Retzlaff. Just kind of goes to show how good of a coach Kalani Sitake is there in Provo. And I think Ryan Silverfield's getting ready for another job. And if not for Justin Fuente, he'd be the perfect hire there in Blacksburg, but they won't hire him for that reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, let's head over to the overrated teams here. Because look, you mentioned Oklahoma. pretty good football team, but I'm not so sure that they're actually a top 5 team when you take a look at this team in detail. When you look at this team under the hood, I'm not sure that they are a top 5 team. Look, there are also folks that talk about Penn State too. I think Penn State dropped to number 7. I'm sorry. And, there are people saying, you know what, maybe a little overrated for number 7 in the nation at this point after the loss to Oregon. Are there a couple teams that you think are way too overrated for what they're ranked at this point in the season, John?
I'll just start with the Penn State if I'll just get this out of the way. Like,
okay,
I think Penn State's going to be a top 3 to 5 team in the Big Ten.
Okay,
there'll be ebb and flow to that. I think Indiana is really good, but like if you're in that 3 to 5 range, you're in the playoff mix. I don't buy into USC at all. Not really buying into Michigan. I think Illinois just got its clock cleaned by Indiana. I think the Illini are pretty good. So I'm not too concerned about Penn State here. I think there's 4 teams in the SEC that are grossly overrated.
Okay.
That would be Oklahoma. That would be Texas. That would be Texas A&M, and that would be LSU. I think that Oklahoma, you beat Michigan like I knew you were going to. Sherman Moore is not going to win that game at his alma mater. John Mateer's played well. He does turn the ball over. I understand he's hurt. He's going to miss the Kent State game. If you win Red River, I'll give Oklahoma their props, but they've got the hardest schedule in the SEC outside of Florida. They got to play so many tough teams. Don't really trust Brent Venables. If Ben Arbuckle's as good as it can be, like they may be able to overcome this. They might be the only 9-3 team that makes the playoff this year if it comes to that. Again, I've mentioned Texas. Don't trust Arch Manning. Don't think they're going to beat Georgia between the hedges. I don't know if they're going to beat A&M. Don't trust A&M. I interviewed Jesse Palmer back in the day. And he said, don't ever trust Texas A&M under any circumstance. And I've taken that to heart. And as far as LSU is concerned, Brian Kelly is kind of it's like him and Lincoln Riley. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I feel bad because they finally got a defense there, but Nussmeier is not healthy, and you really need to win Magnolia there. So I will say of those 4 teams between Oklahoma, Texas A&M, LSU, and Texas, maybe one of them makes the playoff. I'd be much more likely to take Oklahoma, Alabama, and Georgia over any of that.
Man, it's interesting to witness what has been happening with the SEC in terms of powerhouse teams, in terms of the conference in general. Interesting for sure. And we're going to be talking about this more in the future here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show. PhiladelphiaSportsTable.com is where you can get all of our content and subscribe on whatever audio podcast platform you're listening to us on, and also on YouTube. Search out the Philadelphia Sports Table, and make sure that you're also searching out John Buhler over at fansided.com, and just Google, like John said, just Google him, and you're going to get some great content from him. John, buddy, thanks so much for taking the time to jump on the show. It was always great talking to you. Come back, join us down the road. We'll talk more football. I'd love to do it, my friend.
Sounds great, Jeff. Thanks for having me.